We usually go at 3 o'clock live, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but I said, forget about that. Forget about that. Let's go early. I'm around. I've got time. Let's beat everybody else to the punch. Let's talk about this joint practice with the Washington Commanders that just wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. And then I'm going to get into the camp mailbag that we do each and every Wednesday live right here on Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. Before we get jumped up and going bananas and cartwheels, and make sure you help us out. Click that thumbs up, like us as you watch, like the podcast, always helps us with that algorithm. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Trying to get to 7,000 subscribers. Appreciate every single one of you, whether you're watching live right now or watching on demand. You might be watching at Spotify. You might be listening to Apple Pods. Whatever it is, we appreciate every single one of you. Every single one of you. Pats Pro, Nick, just one question. How wet blankety was Bedard today? He was not wet blankety. Greg Bedard actually fixed his fingers to post today that the Patriots, quote-unquote, showed well against the Washington Commanders. Now, I have a lot of joint practice thoughts. I'm going to start with one big one here, and then I'm going to give you a whole lot more during the Lockdown podcast that will be coming out later today. But I want to give you one big thought, one big takeaway from this joint practice before I get into more Patriots talk with all of the camp mailbag questions. Let me start here. The Patriots had a good day today. They had a good day today against a team that went to the NFC Championship game last year. Now, this is a joint practice. This is not going to matter once you get to week 1, week 2. We all understand that. We understand Washington is missing some guys, including Terry McLaurin. But this team got to the NFC Championship game a year ago. Let's not forget what happened last year during the awful joint practice against Philadelphia. I was there for that one. I witnessed that debacle. The Patriots got their tookuses handed to them during that joint practice. Offensively, defensively, it was a bleep show. You walked away from that joint practice feeling like it was going to be a long season if the Pats continued to put out what they put out on that field on that day. Today, completely the opposite. Today, you walk away from this joint practice against the Commanders feeling good. You walk away feeling like things are headed in the right direction. You walk away, dare I say it, feeling encouraged about the Patriots and this 2025 season. Leading into this joint practice, a lot of people talking about the Patriots. They could be a wild card team, a playoff team. Watch out. A lot of people underrating them. We need to pay attention to the Patriots. I've seen all of it. I've heard all of it. But inevitably, the Patriots have to back it up on the field. And you can only do that step by step. The only thing the Patriots could do today in this joint practice, we're not going to hang up the banner at Gillette Stadium, but the only thing that the Patriots could do during this joint practice was prove that they deserved to be on the same field as the Commanders. And they absolutely proved that and then some. Let's begin with this idea that the Patriots were operating at an efficient and high level today. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. They were prepared. They were ready. They didn't look lost. They didn't look like, the Little Giants. Is that the movie from like 20 some odd years ago now? They didn't look like the Little Giants against the Commanders today. They didn't look like a Pee-wee football outfit. They didn't look like a junior high school football team. They didn't look like a high school team. They did not even look like a college football team going against the Commanders today during this joint practice. They stepped on that field and they operated efficiently. They operated mostly at a high level, and they proved that they deserve to be on the field right now in early August with a team that was one of the best teams in football last year. And that's all you could ask. Again, we're not getting too far ahead. We're not going to sit here and promise that this team's winning a championship. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this was a guarantee. This was a guaranteed, unbelievable start and that this means they're going to win 13, 14 games. I'm measured. And I take camp season. I talk about the preseason. We go step by step by step. And we go through every single step and we ask the question whether or not the Patriots passed that specific test. This ain't the final. But this was the first big test for the Patriots during this camp. And we circled this on the calendar. I circled it on the calendar. What would they do in this joint practice? Next week will be Minnesota. We'll do the same thing, and maybe they'll get labeled next week by Minnesota. But right now, the first test, they passed, operating at a rather high level. There was no offensive line disaster that I read on Twitter today. I wasn't reading from the people on the ground telling me that the offensive line was a mess. I wasn't reading about how the offensive line couldn't pass protect. And yes, the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line from last year, better than the Washington defensive line that this Pats offensive line faced, right? The defensive lines are different. But we heard through the first couple of weeks of camp, we've heard about the one-on-ones. I know some people have been screaming from the mountaintops about Will Campbell. Is he going to be a bust? Is he a mess? What's happening with Campbell? Did they waste that top 5 pick? Mostly radio narratives. I'm a radio host. But I'll tell you, pay attention to the people that are on the ground. The people that are there reporting day in, day out, watching every single practice and every single rep. Follow those people and listen and read to what they're saying and what they're writing. We can only go step by step, and today was a big win for the Patriots. It was a big win for anybody who wants to try to take this team seriously right now. It was a big win for the offensive line because they weren't getting absolutely railroaded during a joint practice. That's a win. That is a win. It's a win for Will Campbell. It's a win for Jared Wilson. It's a win for every offensive lineman out there. Let me put it to you this way. If the Patriots stunk today, how would you feel? If the Patriots stunk today, I would have gone onto this podcast and I would have sat here and told you they stunk. They got their butts handed to them. Drake Maye was a disaster. Receivers couldn't get open. Offensive line was run over again. Will Campbell looked lost. We would have handled it that way. I sit here and I tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. If the Patriots stink, I tell you they stink. If the Patriots pass a test, I tell you they pass a test. I don't get too far ahead of my skis. I don't sit here and tell you that the season is lost because they have a bad practice. I'm not going to tell you the season's going to be a success because they had a good joint practice today against Washington. Again, step by step, moment by moment. That's what we do. Whether it's right here on Everything Pats or it's on Locked On Patriots or it's my podcast with Greg. That's how I handle it. Your perception of me could be whatever it is, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you what's happening. And so today was a win for the Patriots. Tomorrow could be, well, it's going to be an off day. Tomorrow will be an off day for the Patriots. Friday night could be a loss. Friday night could be a loss. So let's look at this because I know some people are going to go bananas, like James Sammy, Drake Maye, 14 for 21 with a pick. We're talking 11 on 11s. We're talking 7 on 7s. Drake Maye began his day 10 of 12, and one of those 2 incompletions was a dropped pass from his receiver. I would like you to go check this out, James. Go check out Twitter if you'd like. Pull up Doug Kyde, pull up Bedard, pull up Lazar, pull up Andrew Callahan, pull up anybody, and find one person that says Drake Maye wasn't good today. Find a single person that says that. I'm not talking about the people that weren't at the practice yelling on the radio. I'm talking about people that were actually there watching, witnessing what's happened. Find one person. Find one person. Am I being overly complimentary or are you being overly critical? Drake Maye was really good today. The offense was really good today. Fact, not opinion. Somebody in Boston says that. or at least used to say it. You take the practice in totality. That's what you do. Drake Maye threw multiple touchdowns during this practice today. Multiple. So you can do what you do. I'm going to do what I do. It's all good. It's all good. I'm going to tell you what happened at the practice. No offensive line disasters. No offensive line disasters. Okay? And James Sammy, I'm going to do it one more time. Drake Maye didn't finish well. It was at the very end of practice, a red zone drill. And by the way, the interception, he was throwing it to a wide open Pop Douglas, who beat his man at the line of scrimmage. And Bobby Wagner, linebacker at the second level, tipped the pass, turned into a pick. James, again, I'm going to do what I do. You can do what you do. Details matter. Context matters. That's what happened. It was a tipped ball by a linebacker as Maye was throwing to a wide open receiver. And by the way, 14 of 21, again, Mac Hollins dropped multiple passes. There's no single reporter today telling you that Drake Maye was anything short of good, if not really good. End of it. I'm done. Hopefully you're done as well with the comments, because I just told you what actually happened. Offensive line held their own. No disastrous reports. Good stuff. Good stuff. The defense held their own against Jaden Daniels. Now, again, to be fair, to add context, the defense held their own against Daniels, but we have to mention three people. There was no Terry McLaurin. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. There was no. You're missing your best offensive player. You're missing your best wide receiver. This is why I think it's absolutely crazy that Washington has yet to sign Terry McLaurin to an extension. It makes zero sense to me. So without Terry McLaurin, this Washington offense is different. And we have to be honest with ourselves when we look at that, and we include that within the context of today. So the defense, all in all, back and forth early, ended up with a pretty good day without Terry McLaurin. We also have to point out that Washington did not have two offensive linemen. Now, one guy tore his ACL in January, and that's Cosme. Cosme might not be ready for the beginning of the season. He didn't travel with the team. So he's, one of their best offensive linemen. We have to include that. Brandon Coleman, who played left tackle for Washington last year, is kicking inside the left guard this season. He did not travel with the team. So in fairness to Washington, they were down two starting offensive linemen and their best receiver / best player on that side of the ball. So to be fair, McLaurin didn't travel, Cosme didn't travel, Coleman didn't travel. Defense played pretty well, handled their own. And maybe the moment of the day that everybody's going to be talking about was Mike Vrabel. Because Mike Vrabel ends up going out there, and there was a bit of a back and forth between Travion Henderson, and reportedly it was Von Miller. Henderson picked up a blitz. Henderson took Miller to the ground. Miller took exception. There was some extracurricular activity going on. Really cool here. Number one, Henderson picked up the blitz. And that is something we've consistently discussed about this, pick in a top 40 spot of a running back. We've consistently talked about Henderson on third down. His ability to pick up blitzes, his pass protection was a major reason why the Patriots picked him with that 38th pick. And so you start, first of all, before we get to Vrabel, you start with Henderson picking up the blitz. Good job by the rookie. Identified it, picked it up, and put Von Miller on his tuk-tuk. So fantastic job by Henderson to begin that play. Then the guys hit the ground. Apparently Will Campbell jumped in. Kind of love it, right? Rookie running back against a veteran like Von Miller. They're kind of getting in the middle of it. Will Campbell, we've discussed this throughout the draft and all of the time that we've, had these conversations. Will Campbell, he's got some nasty to him. Will Campbell, he loves to play, as Vrabel says, with, the effort and the finish. And Campbell's got some nasty to him. And you saw it today because Campbell jumped in. Campbell jumped into the pile to protect his guy. Love it. That's what an offensive lineman is supposed to do. You're talking about a 21-year-old rookie. He's not afraid of the moment. Campbell jumped right in. He was ready. Ding, ding. So Campbell jumps in. And then Vrabel jumped in. Vrabel jumped in, not to get into a fight. Vrabel jumped in to try to separate people. And apparently, as Vrabel's down at the bottom of the pile, which is where he ended up because he's a 50-year-old man, he ends up at the bottom of the pile. He gets up. His cheek is bleeding. Pop Douglas said they asked Vrabel. He asked Vrabel about, what happened or something. And Vrabel's response was, you should see the other guy, which is just a perfect Vrabel response. So, Henderson's in there. Campbell's in there. You got Vrabel in there. Vrabel comes out. He's bleeding from the cheek. He gets a towel. This is like, first joint practice stuff. First joint practice kind of stuff. Your head coach in the bottom of a pile coming out with a bloody cheek. And Hunter Henry talked about it at the end of practice. Hunter Henry said, that just shows that the head coach is with us. And again, we're not going to sit here. And I'm not going to put the rose-colored glasses on when the Patriots have a bad practice or they have a bad game. It's just not it. If you've been watching, we started in September of 2023. If you've been watching, I absolutely dragged Belichick across the coals during that 23 season. I've dragged him as a GM. We absolutely got all in on Gerard Mayo last year, and I was absolutely critical of Mayo. And I will be critical of Vrabel if there are things that show up like, mismanagement at the end of halves and mismanagement at the end of games and, all the confusing stuff that coaches can do, lack of accountability. I'll be there. I'll be there if it happens. I'll be there. I'll be there. Is that Redman? I'll be there if that happens. But I'm also going to be here, whether it's at Everything Pats or Lockdown or with Greg. And I'm going to be here and I'm going to tell you when there's good stuff, when they have a good joint practice. So we're not going to hang any banners for today's joint practice. We're not throwing any parades. But today was very encouraging. It was the first big test for this team under Mike Vrabel. They passed the test. They passed the test rather easily. And I see some people making a good point as well. And yes, MA 177, Kayshon Boutte did get into it a little bit. I don't know if it was with Marshawn Lattimore or not. It wouldn't surprise me because Lattimore has a long history. Him and Mike Evans fight pretty much every time they play. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Lattimore. But yeah, Boutte got into something too during practice. He got into a little bit of a kerfuffle, as Judge Judy would say. Very encouraging day. Step in the right direction heading into Friday night's preseason game against Washington. And all I want along this camp is progression, growth from the young players, and the Patriots to feel like and look like a serious program. And I think you're checking all the boxes right now. This team progressing, yes. The young players improving so far, yes. Does this team look like a serious football program? Abso-freaking-lutely. And so just keep checking those boxes as we go along. This is not going to go from a 4-win team to a 14-win team overnight, and everything's going to be perfect. You got to see that progression as you go along. People are pointing out, and it's a great point. I mentioned McLaurin out and Cosme out and Coleman out. To be fair, Davis didn't practice today. He was out there in pads, but he didn't practice from reports. Obviously, Gonzalez is not practicing. Kayvon Chason, who's been great in camp, he wasn't out there today. So, yeah, the Patriots were also missing some players. So we can go tit for tat and go back and forth. Both teams missing some players, both teams missing important players, fair to say. But an encouraging day. An encouraging day, looking like a serious program. I will have a lot more details on this joint practice coming up on the Locked On episode, Locked On Patriots, if you want to follow me there as well. Locked On Patriots coming up later today. That will be released in a few hours. But while you're here, don't forget, help a brother out. Click that thumbs up, throw a comment in, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell Patriots fans. Nick Cattles here at Everything Pats. Nick Cattles at Locked On Patriots. And Cattles trying to keep Greg Bedard in line over at that podcast. All right, let's jump into some mailbag questions. Want to get to some mailbag questions. I'll begin with some of my Patreon members who do a great job, patreon.com/Nick Cattles. Let's jump in. Steve, if you wanted to trade anyone from that crowded wide receiver room, who would you move? Is there any return value in any of them? What if paired up with Kyle Duggar? If I'm looking for some type of return for a receiver in a trade, Bourne would be at the top of my list. He's an NFL wide receiver. He's got 2 years left on his deal. Very manageable contract, by the way. And right now, Diggs, Williams, Booty, they're all ahead of Bourne on the depth chart, and they can do what Bourne does on the field. Now, I said a couple of months ago, I thought Bourne was going to be in line to have a pretty big impact this season. I've been wrong so far. He's been a forgotten man for the most part. So looks like I was wrong on that if that continues, and now he's got an injury. So the injury is obviously a situation that we got to keep an eye on. But Booty, Williams, and Diggs can do everything that Bourne can do. And, I think you might be able to get at least a day 3 pick for Bourne. Maybe you call San Francisco. We know the 49ers were interested in Bourne last year when the Patriots were trying to acquire Brandon Ayuk. Kyle Shanahan is a big fan. You look at San Francisco right now, no Ayuk. There's some drama happening with Ayuk again between he and the coaching staff and the program. You look at Ricky Pearsall trying to prove himself in his second year after, an early tough time and then got better as the season went on. Dude was shot during camp last year. Crazy story. And, you can look at even Jawan Jennings, who is asking for a new contract. And, are they going to want to trade Jennings? So right now I'd say Bourne's that guy. I'd pick up the phone. If I'm going to do that, San Francisco's my first call. I don't think pairing any receiver with Duggar would help. I think Duggar's actually prohibitive to a deal because of the money. He's making like $14.5 million a year, and after last season, I just don't think a team would be interested in that. Rob C., do you think the Pats have any strong interest to move to get Terry McLaurin, who is obviously not there today? Judging by recent history, Rob, yes. Patriots tried for Calvin Ridley, offered him some big money. They tried to trade for Ayuk and offered him, according to Burt Breer, the most money that was on the table. DK Metcalf, the Patriots were at least interested in Metcalf, according to Phil Perry, but found out Metcalf wasn't necessarily interested in them, so they were lukewarm. But they've been going after receivers over the last year plus. So I would say yes. The Patriots would absolutely be interested in McLaurin. I know some people disagree with this. I think McLaurin's a number one guy. Worked in Virginia Beach for a few years. Watched McLaurin every single week with the Commanders, so I've watched a lot of Terry McLaurin. I think he was done wrong by terrible quarterback situations year after year. Still put up 1,000-yard seasons with bad quarterback play. We're talking terrible quarterback play. And then when he gets Jaden Daniels, he has his best season. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think McLaurin is a bona fide number one guy. I think he's a top 10 to 15 receiver in football. He's also a perfect X receiver, which is what the Patriots would be looking for. He would be an upgrade over any X that you have. I mean, you've got Booty, you've got Williams, you've got Mac Hollins. He's easily an upgrade over those guys. So he would absolutely be put on that outside. You'd have McLaurin on the outside. You'd have Diggs as your move receiver, and you'd have Pop Douglas in the slot. I mean, tell me you wouldn't be excited about that. McLaurin on the outside, Pop in the slot, and McDaniels moving Diggs all over the place in that Z position at wide receiver. I would love to go to war, so to speak, with that top three. He's more of a veteran presence. I don't think it would cost as much as some of those other guys. I don't think it would cost you a first-round pick because he's in his 30s or about to be in his 30s. So I don't think it would cost you as much. And, does Washington care? If I'm Washington, if I left that joint practice today, one of the first things I'm doing, I'm calling Terry McLaurin and I'm giving him money. Honestly, I don't know how you go into the season with Jaden Daniels and you say, hey, your number one receiver is, Deebo Samuel, who I think the tread is wearing down. So I find it hard to believe that McLaurin will be gone. But are the Patriots interested? I would have to imagine yes. David Main, when you make your preseason prediction, which I have not done yet, I wait until the very end. What are the top 3 factors that will influence your prediction? Good question, tough question. No particular order. Number 1, Maye's progression through camp and joint practices. So he was good, if not really good today. He's been good overall in this camp. So I want to see that continued progression, build the confidence even more in my thoughts about Maye, who I really, really like and loved the pick last year. I think, progression from him. What's the offensive line doing is another big question. Have Campbell and Wilson given us legit hope on the left side? Do they continue to play well? They were, by all accounts, at least okay today. Nothing disastrous. Does Morgan Moses get through camp healthy? That's another question I'm looking at. Garrett Bradbury, I've got questions about him. Pass protection, he's been brutal. Today, he sounded like it wasn't that big of a deal. Again, didn't read much about pressure and craziness from the offensive line, but Bradbury was not good last year for Minnesota in pass protection. So I want to see what they do with him. And defensively, do you get Gonzalez and Davis back? I know that Vrabel and many people are saying, there were reports from Jordan Schultz saying that Gonzalez should be ready by week 1. Sounds good. We'll see if he gets out there. Hamstrings, I'm always concerned. But if Gonzalez and Davis are healthy to start week 1, that would also impact my preseason prediction for this team in 2025. Because if you can start Gonzalez and Davis, that defense, I think with their ceiling with those 2 guys is just, I think they got a high ceiling defensively. Let's get to Terry. I'll be flying in and out of Vegas for my upcoming vacation. Congrats. I've been to Vegas a couple times. Fantastic. I have never, ever bet on sports, but I've decided to spend a little money and make some bets. Obviously, I'll bet on the Patriots to win the Super Bowl, obviously. Can you make some suggestions on a few bets I should do? Entertainment purposes only. I hate giving betting advice because I don't want to lose people money. But I love NFL futures. So here are 3 things I'm looking at, Terry. I went on BetMGM. We're looking at over-unders. Right now, the Giants, 5.5 wins. I'm going under. The Giants have a ridiculously tough schedule. I'm going under the 5.5. 49ers, I'm going under 10.5. A lot of drama still in San Francisco. I'm not the biggest believer in Brock Purdy. I know he got the deal. And I would say the Saints are at 6.5. I'd go Saints under 6.5. If anyone has suggestions for Terry betting-wise, throw them in the comments. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up as well. K_Roberts48. Who do you think the Pats should target with that 4th waiver wire slot to elevate with the roster? Well, I'm not sure who's going to be available, so I'll break this down by positions of interest. I would be looking at tackle because they are thin at tackle. Caden Wallace now left guard. You're banking on Marcus Bryant, 7th-round pick. You're banking on DeMontre Jacobs, 2nd-year player who wasn't very good last year. Yasir Durant was put on the IR, so he's done for the season. Jack Conley, a UDFA. Can he make it? I'm reading that there's, a lack of athleticism with Conley, which will probably hurt his chances of making the team. So I'd first look at tackle. Second, I look at tight end. I still think that you're Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper and then bust. Tight end is a concern. Very thin at tight end. I then look at interior offensive line if you're not happy with what you've got. I maybe look at a big body defensive tackle to help your run defense if you think you're struggling there, because they're a little light in the butt on the interior defensive line. Vrabel likes that because he likes rushing the passer and being aggressive, but you might need another body. I will say Kyrie's Tonga has had a very good camp, and I saw Andrew Callahan tweet today that Tonga was terrific in this joint practice. So Tonga's been a pretty good find through camp so far. So you might not need that extra body. Interesting. The Patriots did claim Trey Avery last night, who's a cornerback. They claimed him from the 49ers. He has a history with the Tennessee Titans. He's a Vrabel guy. He's a core special teams guy. Marcellus Dial, unfortunately, we found out last night that he tore his ACL. He's done for the year. So I think this is more like, extra depth at cornerback, also maybe some special team stuff. So that's what I would be looking at. Again, tough to say because you don't know who would actually become available. Brian Hurst, 01. Haven't heard much about Henderson yet, other than a photo of him this week. Any challenges he's facing as a rookie? Well, I discussed Henderson a lot earlier this week on a Lockdown episode, if you want to check that out. He was dominant at Monday's practice. Not much bad coming out of camp from reporters about Henderson. He's been very good on third down. He's been devastating as a receiver. He's had a drop or two. He dropped a touchdown today, so he's had a couple of drops. But Henderson has mostly been really good in practice, and I just think he's going to be an impact player right away. So good stuff on Travion Henderson. I'd say he's battling Jared Wilson for best rookie of camp, and he's probably leading that race. Fantasy CPA. How do you see the receiver room playing out? How many make the 53-man practice squad candidates, possible trades? A lot of people telling me that the Patriots are going to take 7 guys at wide receiver out of camp. We'll see if that's true. I think they'll end up taking 6. Here are my locks right now at receiver. Diggs, lock. Pop, lock. Mac Hollins, lock. Kyle Williams, lock. Kayshon Boutte, surprise, but I think he's now a lock. I wouldn't have said that 3 weeks ago, but I think the camp that Boutte has had, he's been consistently out there with the top guys. He's been getting reps with the ones consistently. I think you will see Boutte on this team. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. I think you've got 5 guys who are pretty much locks. The race is for that 6th spot. Now, if you take 7, it's easier. But in order, here's who I have right now. In order, Javon Baker. Wouldn't have said that 2 weeks ago. Baker's making a push. Had another touchdown today. I think Javon Baker right now is your leader for that 6th wide receiver spot. I would then go with Bourne, but Bourne's got the injury. We talked about him earlier, so maybe he gets dealt. You got to see what happens there. I would then go Polk, and then I would go Chisholm. I still think Chisholm is last in line. He had a pretty good practice today, so maybe he leapfrogs Polk. I think that battle is Polk and Chisholm at the very end. But right now, if you're taking 6, I think it's Pop, Diggs, Hollins, Williams, Boutte, and then Baker. I think right now that's your 6. Fluid situation. Trades, we talked about Bourne. I think he's likely the only value in the room, and that you would want to trade. And I think right now the practice squad, you try to get Polk and Chisholm to the practice squad. But again, that would depend on if you're taking 7 into the season. It would depend on Kendrick Bourne. DJ 40 plus, have your expectations been adjusted after the recent offensive struggles in camp? So I wanted to answer this question for one specific reason. The offense, by the way, had a good day today against Washington. I just want to make this statement. The offensive struggles, to me, seem to be more of a radio narrative than a reality. The offense has certainly had some rough patches here and there during camp, but it's not as if the offense can't get out of its own way. The biggest issue with the offense in camp has been the low red zone, which is the 10-yard line and in. That's where they've struggled, but there's some context. They haven't been running the football a ton in the low red zone. In the NFL, the vast majority of touchdowns, I think Warren Sharp had this the other day, 75% of the rushing touchdowns in the NFL last year were from the low red zone area. Teams get inside the 10, they run the football. The Patriots have been working on their low red zone passing game. So in this case, context matters. And some people will not mention the context, but that's the context. So a lot of the struggles from Maye, first you start low red zone area, which some of that could be expected, especially when you're not running the football. Low red zone is tough. And then you've got the scrimmage from last Friday. Now, the scrimmage also has context. Maye was playing with some backup offensive linemen, and he was working with receivers that he had not worked with during camp for the most part. He worked with a few guys that he hadn't worked with before. So, again, I'm not excusing it. Maye did not have a good scrimmage. But overall, Drake Maye has had a good camp, including today. Overall, Maye has had a good camp. The offensive line, Campbell's been up and down. He's been much better in team. He was good in team today. He was solid one-on-one today against Washington. So I think Campbell's been, up and down. He's a 21-year-old rookie. And I think he's been good in team. He's been good run blocking, very good run blocking. Jared Wilson's mostly been up. Bradbury's a down. Again, I have questions about him. Mike Owenu, you haven't heard a peep about Mike Owenu, which is good. That means Owenu's having a really good camp. Nobody's talked about Mike Owenu. He's not getting blown up in the run game or the one-on-ones. Owenu's been pretty damn good during camp. Morgan Moses had a rough first couple days. He's gotten better as camp has gone on. So I think a lot of the world is falling apart is an overreaction to some of the one-on-ones that Campbell has lost. But again, Campbell, candidly, he's had an up and down. But when you look at the team periods, you look at the 11-on-11s, you look at, the run game, Campbell's been good, if not very good, in those two areas. So he's been beaten in one-on-ones from time to time. But I think some people are going a little bit overboard with it to carry the whole thing about, is he a bust and stuff like that. He's been good in team. The biggest test for this offense, the biggest test for this offensive line will be next week against Minnesota in those joint practices, because Minnesota has a lot more talent on that defensive line than Washington has on their defensive line. So that will be a bigger challenge. But my expectations haven't changed much. I certainly wouldn't say they've worsened because of what's happened. And today makes me feel even more encouraged about the offense. Pete_PP69008. Some of these handles. Who's the third tight end to come out of camp? Maybe G. Scott, Dupree, Westover. They haven't done much to stand out. I would question if the Patriots even carry 3 tight ends. Darkstorm 0000. That's 4 zeros. Lately, by the way, Evo, I discussed this a little bit earlier, just saw it. How bad was the interception Maye threw? Today, not bad. Pop Douglas was wide open. He was throwing it to Douglas. And Bobby Wagner, linebacker, one of the better linebackers in football, he got a hand on it, tipped it up, and it was picked. So it wasn't something that, Maye forced. It wasn't like a terrible decision. It was just he tried to hit Pop. Wagner got a hand on it. It was picked. Lately, Maye's inconsistent offensive performances have reminded me of the extensive footage recorded last year, focusing on his footwork and other aspects of his game. However, I haven't seen much of that this year. What could be the reason behind this? Again, Maye's struggles this camp come down to 2 moments, 2 situations, mostly low red zone and the scrimmage. Overall, he's been fine. I think the biggest takeaway with Maye right now for me is he's improved on all the little things. 4th offensive coordinator in 4 years. And Josh McDaniels, we know, not the easiest system to learn. But Maye has seemingly had control at the line of scrimmage, knows what's going on, seems calm, and it looks like he has a good handle on everything. Communicating with skill position players. And today, again, he started today, 10 of 12, and one of the 2 incompletions was a dropped pass. And apparently he was humming. To start this joint practice, he was absolutely humming out there. So that's what I've been paying attention to with Maye, is the little things. Line of scrimmage. Is he when he scrambles, is he still looking to throw the football, which he has been? Is he taking better care of the football? He has been. Again, we're talking about the entire camp. He's taking care of the football better than he did last year. So it's all the signs of progression. The mechanics and the footwork, I don't think it's as much of an issue this year. That's why you haven't heard as much of it. What is this? Pamper of Erpo 12? I'm trying. What is the possibility that Will Campbell turns out to be a bust? As an offensive lineman, slim to none. Like, I don't think Will Campbell will end up being a bust as an offensive lineman. Worst case scenario, he ends up having to slide to left guard. Worst case scenario. I don't think he'll be an all-out bust. I don't think he'll be a bust at left tackle. Now, maybe I end up being wrong. I'm not telling you he'll be great, but I don't think he'll be a bust. And I certainly don't think he'll be a bust on the offensive line. I'm not going to overreact to every time he's beat on a one-on-one in his rookie camp at 21 years old. If he struggles in team as camp goes on, if he struggles in games, if he struggled today, which he didn't by all accounts, then that would be different. But one-on-ones camp, he's going to lose some of them. Yvonne says, ignore the trolls. Anybody who watches you knows you tell it like it is after how horrible things have been. It's good to know they started off good. Thank you, Yvonne. I'm not worried about the trolls. All good. Thomas, all questions. Was there a fight today? Yeah, we talked about it earlier. There was a fight. Travion Henderson and Von Miller got into it on the ground after Henderson picked up a blitz. And Will Campbell jumped in. Vrabel jumped in. Vrabel got out of the bottom of the pile with a bloody cheek. And I feel like that's the best spot to end the show. I appreciate every single one of you watching, jumping on live. We jumped on early to beat the rest of the pack. Encouraging day for the Patriots against the Commanders. Encouraging day. A positive step past the first test, the biggest test so far of this camp. Don't forget to like us. Click that thumbs up. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Locked On Patriots. I'll have a lot more details, a lot more thoughts on this. And thank you, by the way, Choo Choo, for the $2 super chat. I appreciate you. I'll have a lot more thoughts on the Locked On pod that's going to come out a little bit later today. Until then, wish all of you well. Friday we'll have an interview coming up on Friday. So you want to wait for that interview coming up on Friday. That will probably also be released a little bit early. I wish all of you well. Encouraging day for the Pats.